So this game, often regarded as the worst entry in the Donkey Kong series, Donkey Kong Barrel Blast / Jet Race is a weird little racing game that's most notable for being a bongo-based game incompatible with the DK bongos, this punk Kremling girl with an afro who owns a nightclub. Yeah, I like it. And something virgin. Heyo! It's a frustrating product that, yeah, I'll admit is a pretty rough game. Absolutely kneecapped by needing the Wii Remote and Nunchuck to be used as inaccurate replacements for the intended controller. But I think just dismissing it as game bad lol does it a big disservice. This isn't your average Mario Kart clone with a dumb gimmick plastered over it. It's a very carefully considered and advanced Mario Kart clone with a dumb gimmick plastered over it. And some of those ideas are noble enough in intent that I've obsessively thought about them in the recesses of my mind for the past 15 years, and I really need an outlet. You clicked on this, so I'm not sorry. Let's get the perfunctory stuff out of the way. Barrel Blast has you banging bongos, in this case the Wiimote on the right and Nunchuck on the left, to move left or right and to get back-to-back speed from crashes as you zoom over like 7 different basic level archetypes in slightly differing ways to cross the finish line. Along the way, you'll collect bananas scattered about the track. But unlike the 10 to 15 coins you'll collect in a Mario Kart race, there are hundreds of fruits littering Barrel Blast's skyways. Bank 50 and you can spend them on a wild move, an on-command turbo boost that allows the racer to defeat enemies, bust through barrels, and knock opponents out of the way. This adds a ton of flexibility to races, turning the much-vaunted mushroom into a tool that's always at the player's disposal, letting them either save it for recovery upon taking a hit, or using it to blast past rivals and overtake them at their weakest. However, there's one aspect to wild moves that completely revolutionizes them and makes the entire game revolve around their implementation. Every time you successfully hit with a wild move, it will grant you another turbo boost for free, stacking on top of the last one. As long as you keep crashing into smashable stuff, your turbo boost will keep going indefinitely, launching you forward in one perfect prolonged burst of speed. At its best, Donkey Kong Barrel Blast is a thrilling test of track knowledge, busting through barrels strewn about the course to keep the flames burning and leave your rivals in the dust. Unfortunately, most tracks don't take proper advantage of this system, having long straightaways of just nothingness to interrupt your flow. So I went through all of the tracks to find an actually good one. It's this one, Temple Heights. The first stretch of Temple Heights sees the player straddling alongside this massive waterfall, the course littered with 2 straight lines of barrels. While these barrels won't do anything on a first pass, each one the player destroys with a regular attack, because by the way DK can just punch when he wants to in this game, will net them 10 bananas. And considering the sheer number of barrels, that means a player's likely going to have a wild move on deck after the first turn. This brings racers to a straightaway leading inside the temple, and here the player is presented with a choice. They can use their wild move to smash ahead, carefully weaving left and right in a huge burst of speed to keep the combo going, or they can hop into this barrel cannon, which is slightly slower but ensures they get out of the straightaway without getting blasted by items. Either way, they're left with a calm section in the temple, no obstacles, no room to maneuver, and no ability to escape anyone who's got a wild move still on deck from charging right into you. And it is absolutely vital to either hit or save a wild move after this portion, because as soon as you're approaching open air again, you're presented with the longest string of barrels in the entire track. 17 different rows of barrels a player can ram into in a row, plus Neckies dive bombing you that can also be used as combo fodder, makes this the most important stretch of track imaginable. Hitting just half of these barrels obviously nets you another wild move, which you can then use on a following sequence of 7 barrels to burst forward even more. However, it's even more valuable for avoiding the
ancient Babylonian Donkey Kong laser beams
set off by the track, which will hit anyone who isn't blasting past at full speed. You can leap up to this sky jelly to avoid it, but it's a very cumbersome process that will ruin a run if you get thrown off your groove. Something that's very possible, as right before this stretch, the player is given access to item balloons that can change the course of a race entirely. Items are uniquely distributed into 2 groups in Barrel Blast, red or blue. Red balloons feature mostly defensive items or those focused on giving you more bananas, while blue balloons feature more aggressive items and traps focused on slowing your opponents down. There are exceptions to each, of course, but what's interesting about them is these items show favoritism depending on what character you're playing as. Kongs gain some sort of additional benefit from all the items in red balloons, while Kremlings gain a bonus from blue balloon items, very subtly changing the playstyle between both teams. Kongs can afford to be a little more risky with items like the invincibility granting melon and crystal coconut to protect them, able to maintain an easier lead, while Kremlings are more prone to huge comebacks with offensive powerhouse items like the pineapple launcher, wild elixir granting them 2 instant wild moves, and the mega TNT barrel screwing up everyone's day. Depending on what item you get and when you drop it, along with what character you are, this stretch of track can change substantially, as getting assaulted with items here leaves you not only vulnerable to other racers, but to neckies, eye lasers, and even opponents smashing up the barrels you were gonna use to power forward. The Kongs, able to avoid most of this nonsense with the right item, tend to do better on this portion. But immediately after this is a narrow walkway through the temple, featuring the fists of Sun Wukong himself, battering down anyone who dares meet him in the middle. Littering this hallway with traps is absolutely deadly, and provides the Kremlings a distinct advantage if they pull a good item here, as there are precious few barrels or bananas here to mount a comeback. It's open season right before the end for K. Rool and company. After that hallway, there's just a few more barrels to make a last-second dash with before the lap completes, and meets you with those 2 strings of barrels again. And they look a lot more appetizing when you've got wild moves to smash through the whole lot. Just don't overcommit and lose your combo to a steel keg, okay? Temple Heights sets out to get the most out of Barrel Blast's unique mechanics. Stretches of the track are laid out to grant awesome bursts of speed. Barrel cannons show up to offer risk-reward. Different legs of the race favor both Kongs and Kremlings depending on what's drawn from the item balloon roulette. And steel kegs and TNT barrels are strategically littered throughout the course to prevent players from mindlessly wild moving their way through. It is a great time that highlights what makes Barrel Blast good if you're racing one-on-one. In a full 8-player race, barrels are going to be crushed all over to prevent most of the pack from making optimal wild move combos. Items are going to be interrupting constantly, and generally, first place is going to run away with it while everyone else picks up the scraps.
Yeah, first place.
And that's not even mentioning the inherent flaws of Barrel Blast, like its shoddy controls, the audio constantly tearing to make your Wii sound like it's dying, and relying on item RNG to actually make a race tolerable. There's a neat idea in here, but like most of Barrel Blast, it's a lot of ambition that refuses to come together, and often makes for a choppy mess. But like, this is the last appearance of On Guard the Swordfish. A lot of Diddy Kong Pilot's forgotten ideas were propped up here in interesting ways, and this is the first game with playable King K. Rool where he doesn't feel like absolute ass to play as. Be nice to it. It's bad, but it's neat. Like Sonic, or video essays.